Okay, ladies, I hope you wore your steel toe boots.
Oh, I got my toes exposed.
I do too, and I was like, what was I thinking? I knew what this lesson was. Truth is, the Lord has been stomping on my feet about this for a while now. And we are talking about the wilderness wanderings, and you cannot talk about the wilderness wanderings without covering this topic over and over and over again. And we have covered it over and over, but we're going to cover it again because that's where the Lord led me. I was like, no, we already talked about this, and God said, talk about it again. You need to hear it again.
Their dose is not full yet.
Honestly, I think we could hear this lesson every single morning, and I think it would actually do us good to hear this lesson every single morning as a reminder. So I want to start off actually in Proverbs, and again, the projector is not working. I apologize. It's been living on borrowed time for a long time now, so hopefully we'll be able to either fix it or replace it soon. But if you want to follow along in your Bible, you can. If not, I'll read the verses out loud too. But this is Proverbs 18, verse 21. This has become, I don't want to say it's my life's verse, but this has become a verse that is very convicting to me. And the Lord reminds me of often anymore. And it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. This little thing right here.
Yeah.
This little thing.
It's
this mountain.
Smallest muscle and very mighty.
This little thing. If I read to you all of the verses in the Bible about this thing right here, we would not get done today. And if that was all we did, was just read about this thing right here, we wouldn't get done. Because it's important. I mean, death and life, right here. We control death and life with this thing right here.
Even down to the fact that when a doctor tells somebody they have cancer, they've already turned on their death mode.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
The things that we say, and that's, I could get into a whole bunch of stuff, but I want to focus it on what we're going to cover this morning. But yeah, anything we say, anything that comes out of our mouth. This morning, and I've got this pretty little slide for you. It says, not fair, poor me, blah, 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 why me, boo-hoo.
Yeah.
I was looking in my mirror this morning.
We're going to talk about complaining.
Yeah.
I said you can't do wilderness wanderings without talking about complaining. Because if you read through, that's pretty much all they did.
Yes.
They complained, and they complained, and they complained, and they complained. But you know what? We can't point the finger.
I know.
I mean, it's like, hi kettle, my name is Black. The pot calling the kettle black. We can't, because we're just as guilty. We are just as guilty. And I want to talk to you this morning about the dangers of complaining. Okay, not just that complaining is bad. I think we all know that. But the power of life and death. Let's talk about that power. Okay, complaining, what this does to us. And just to show you how serious this is, the Lord has called me, and I challenged my readers to do it too, a 30-day fast from fussing.
That's good. That's a
30-day fast from
Most
fussing.
of us have already failed.
Oh, I've blown it several times and had to go, and even that noise right there, I've made that noise, and Jason goes, that is still something negative coming out of your mouth. I'm like,
thank you, because Ed does that all the time, and I'm saying, what are you upset about? I'm not upset. You're complaining. No, I'm not.
No, no. It doesn't have to be words.
Yeah.
It can just be expressions and noises or
grunting,
tone.
Or the
We could say the nice word, yeah. But it's like, so I've been on it 5 days. It's hard,
Do you score? Do you have to score yourself?
No, I'm not scoring. I'm trying to pay attention and catch myself and say, I'm complaining again. I'm complaining. Go outside. Oh, it's hot out here. Shoo, it's just this weather. I'm complaining. How many? Yeah, the humidity, and he didn't put the dishes away, and just little statements that we flippantly say all the time, and we don't keep track of how much complaint is coming out of our mouths. We just don't.
This hurts.
Yeah, it does.
No, but it's true.
But it's true.
Yeah, and we don't have the concept that we're doing it.
Mm-mm. And that's why I knew that I was not going to actually fast from it, but I was going to try.
Mm-hmm.
But the point was more to pay attention to what's coming out of my mouth and catch myself and turn it around if I could into a praise. Like when I went outside for my prayer walk and I said, man, it's hot out here. And I was like, that's a complaint. So I turned around and said, but thank you, Lord, it's not raining, so I can go for my walk.
Yes, thank you.
You know, just find some way to turn it around, you know. Okay, so in Numbers 11 is where we're going to be mostly. So if you want to turn to Numbers 11. And I want to talk about the problems with complaining. Starting in verse 1. Numbers 11. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. Okay. There's your first point right there.
Mm-hmm.
When the people complained, it displeased the Lord. That ought to be a reason enough for us not to complain.
It doesn't apply to just the Jew.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's the people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in here, it's talking about the children of Israel, but that refers to any people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, application-wise.
We're still his children.
Yeah. When the people complain, it displeases the Lord. It's a slap in his face. It's a sign of ingratitude. Lord, you messed up. Lord, you didn't do it right.
Mm.
Yes, Lord, you gave me this, but I wanted that. You know? Think about how, as parents, you know, or, you know, teachers or whatever, we would respond if we were to do something for our children and they say, but I wanted this. No, thank you. No, I appreciate it. You know, just, I wanted that. Well, fine, I'll take it back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's how we treat God.
Mm-hmm.
He gives us, you know, he gave us sun, and it's hot. Well, yeah, the sun is hot. You know, that's just kind of how it works. We complain about everything, and it's a slap in God's face. It is saying, God, you didn't do it right. God, you didn't do it my way. God, I'm not happy with you.
Or why did you let this
Or
happen?
why did you, yeah, it's a complaint against God, and it's an accusation that God did something wrong. That's what it
Wow,
is.
That's powerful.
That's what it is. And let me read these other two verses and then I'll come. Okay, and when the people complained, this is verse 1 again, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it. That is another point. The Lord heard it. Mm-hmm. Nothing comes out of our mouth that the Lord doesn't hear. It doesn't even come into our mind that the Lord doesn't know it.
Yeah, amen.
It doesn't even have to get out. And his anger was kindled. Well, yeah, rightly so. And the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost part of the camp. Okay, it's burning them up. And the people cried unto Moses. And when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. I think at this point the people called to Moses because they knew they were not in good standing with God. Mm-hmm. They thought maybe Moses will listen to us because I don't know if God will.
Well, he's been fixing everything else.
Yeah,
Moses
he's
has.
been going before him.
Yeah.
Going before the
He
Lord
has been,
for them.
yeah, he has been their mediator the whole time, and they still haven't learned how to go to God for themselves. And he, Moses, called the name of the place Taberah because the fire of the Lord burnt among them, which that's basically what it means. The fire was, you know, there. Okay, so basically our point there is complaining displeases the Lord. I want to look at James 3:10, and if you want to flip over there, you can. If not, I'll read it. It says, James 3, by the way, is the, a lot of James talks about the tongue, but James 3 just really goes into depth about the tongue. You want some rough reading? Read through James about what he has to say about the tongue. It makes me sound nice. But James 3:10 says, out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. It ought not be that way. Blessing, cursing, blessing, cursing, blessing, cursing, blessing, cursing. It ought not be that way. And that was what the children of Israel, every time God did something for them, they were, yay, look at us, we're mighty, we're good, you know.
We deserve it.
We deserve it. And then as soon as things weren't going the way they wanted to, well, God just, I don't like this, you know. Blessing, cursing, blessing, cursing. God says, make up your mind. Am I good or not? Am I faithful or not? You can't change your mind every time circumstances change. Because God does not change, even though our circumstances do. He is either good in the good times and the bad, or he's not good at all. You know, he's faithful in the good times and bad, or he's not faithful at all. We have to decide which one it is. Okay? That was a situation, just kind of, those verses just kind of came out of the blue as far as in Numbers. It says the people, complained, but it didn't say what they were complaining about at that point in time. It was just another one of their complaints. So they went through this whole thing, where the fire consumed them, and they went to Moses, and Moses, went to God, and God said, okay, fine. Now, if you look again at Numbers 11, verse 4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. Now, if you remember way back when they first left Egypt, which, by the way, it's been about 2 years and 2 months since they left Egypt. Why it has taken, because this is not part of the 40 years for their disobedience. This is not that yet. This is just the way God's taking them. And why it took that long when it should have only taken a matter of weeks, I can't tell you. I can tell you what I think, and you can take it or leave it. I think this was boot camp. This was training. Because look where they still are after 2 years. They're still whining and complaining. They still haven't learned to trust God. And if they haven't learned to trust God and to be faithful to God, what are they going to do when they get to Canaan and they have everything they ever wanted? Mm-hmm. Well, that's when you forget God, right? You don't need him. Yeah. But if they learn to need and trust him along the way, then maybe when they get there, they'll know God's a good God. We need to cling to him. That's my, take it. But when they left Egypt, if you remember, it says there was a mixed multitude that went up with them, which means not everybody that left was from the children of Israel. There were some Egyptians mixed in there. There were slaves from other countries mixed up in there. There was a whole bunch of other people that went out with them because they're like, you know what? Egypt has just gone through all these plagues, so it's like destroyed. I mean, the animals are dead, and the water was blood, and the firstborn. So there's all this mourning because the firstborns were killed, and the frogs and the locusts and the flies and the gnats ate all the food. And who would want to stay? So when they saw the children of Israel, they're like, well, here's this big mighty throng of people, 600,000 men plus women and children. Let's just go with them. So there was a mixed multitude that went with them. And this mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. In other words, they wanted something else. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? Okay, did you catch that? The mixed multitude fell a-lusting, and then the children of Israel joined in. Mm-hmm. Complaining is contagious.
Misery loves company.
Misery loves company. You get one person saying, boy, this weather is rough. Yeah, I'll tell you, it's hot. And, when I was out here and the bugs and then you've got everybody just
they want their 2 cents in too.
Mm-hmm. It is contagious. And we don't take that into account when we open our mouth to say to speak our displeasure. We don't take into account that then that's going to rub off on everybody around us. And they're going to want it too.
Who's listening?
Who's listening? Well, we know God is. But everybody else is too. And that, if you think about that too, everybody else is, well, that kind of damages our testimony, doesn't it?
Yes.
That blessing and cursing. We go to work and we testify to these people and we try to witness to these people and we say, oh, but I serve a good God. And then we turn around and 3 hours later they're hearing us chew somebody out. Blessing, cursing, good God or not. Christian or not, So they go and they're, who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. Wow, they painted a pretty picture, didn't they? Tell me what they were in Egypt again.
The slaves.
They were royalty, right? No. They were slaves. They're painting a picture like they had it made.
Right.
Complaining about the present distorts our view of the past.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the good old days when this happened and that happened, and and that's what they're doing. They're yeah, you remember when we were in Egypt and we had all the fish we could eat. We had the cucumbers and the onions and the garlic and the yeah, do you remember the disease? Do you remember working till your back broke? Till you died. Yeah, do you remember the whips on your back? Do you remember the Egyptians spitting in your face? Do you remember any of that? Not right now, because right now but the good old days. And how many times now have we gone through this? Back in Egypt we had this, and back in Egypt we had that. You're not in Egypt anymore. Move on. Complaining will do that. And I have to admit, I'm guilty of that too. I think back to previous jobs that Jason's had, one in particular, had really good hours. He went in at 7, worked till like 4:30 on Monday through Thursday, and then Friday was like a half day. You worked 7 to 11 or something like that. So you had the whole afternoon on Friday, so you got that long weekend. Oh, the hours were great. And it was a shipping inventory job, so you did some manual work, but you also did a lot of computer work, so it was not all day just sweating and toiling and, that hard manual labor. So he wasn't so tired when he came home in the afternoon, and it was a steady schedule. I knew if work was over at 4:30, we only lived like 5 minutes from where he worked, so that was another plus, He'd be home 4:45. I could plan for dinner at 5 o'clock every day, It was a schedule, it was a routine, and I think back and, man, I long for those days. But you know what? He was also making $12 an hour. I don't long for those days. We have trouble making it at what he makes now. I can't imagine trying to make it at $12 an hour. But funny how when I'm complaining about schedule and routine and time and energy, I lose sight of that. I forget about that. I just see what I want to see. I remember what I want to remember. With the hours, man, those hours were good. Well, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of it? See, we have to be careful when we're complaining about the present because we almost romanticize and fantasize the past instead of seeing it the way it really was. Okay?
I remember the good.
Yeah, exactly. So they go on. But now, okay, we had this in Egypt. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. Talk about drama. We were talking about drama.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
You don't even have to be a woman. Here you go. This was all of them. Our soul is dried away. Oh, good grief.
Yeah.
That manna. Now, granted, I would get tired of having the same thing to eat every day. I have to admit that. I would.
The option
But
to go hungry
the option is to
Yeah.
go hungry. And I don't see anywhere, and I haven't found anywhere where God told them, said that they couldn't go hunting, or
That's
that they
true.
couldn't, eat some of their animals if they just absolutely had to have something to eat.
There you go.
I have not found, if you find it, please let me know, but I have not found anywhere where he said they couldn't do that.
Well, they weren't able to do that as slaves either.
But there's nothing that says they couldn't do it now. But they want handout.
And they were fed
They want a
by
handout.
their masters, and that's where they...
And that's,
Where we
I
are.
want a handout. So their soul is dried away now. Nothing at all besides this manna. That reminds me of this Moses, flippant and careless and just whatever. This manna. That manna was awesome stuff. The Bible says it tasted like cake.
And the nutrients.
Cake, and it had all the nutrition of like a salad.
And it came from
Can you imagine getting to eat cake and getting all the nutrition of it from a salad? Wow, that would be awesome.
That would be my kind of cake.
That's my kind of cake. They had every nutritional value they needed in that manna. So they were lacking nothing, vitamins, minerals,
Right.
nothing. It had everything they needed and tasted like dessert. Yum! But no, wait, I want meat. It's not enough. We want meat. So not only does complaining displease the Lord, not only is it contagious, not only does it cloud our view of the past, but it also causes us to exaggerate about the present. Everything is going wrong.
And that's a lie.
Everything. Nothing is working for me today. Nothing. Is your heart beating?
Mm-hmm.
That's working.
That's good.
You breathing? Your lungs are working. Now, is everything working at optimal capacity? Maybe not. But it's working. Give thanks for that. It could not be working. There are people who are not working. They're on machines right now. We take so much for granted, and then we take these little things and we blow them all out of proportion. I mean, and do you ever wonder why when one bad thing happens during the day, then you have just this horrible day, and it seems like everything goes wrong? Well, we've already told ourselves everything goes wrong. Power of life and death. We already said this is a bad day. Well, yep, it is now. It is now. We have already determined it with our mouth. We've already determined it. So it causes us to exaggerate and magnify the problem. The problem is this big, And by the time we get done with it, it's like this big. And God says, really? I'm this big. So they go on. Verse 10, Numbers 11. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families. They are weeping, y'all. I mean, not just complaining. I mean, there's tears. Every man in the door of his tent. Every man
That's good.
in the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased.
All right.
Yeah. Did they have a right to be? Sure. Now get this. Keep going. And Moses said unto the Lord, wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? I'm going to keep going, and I'll come back to that. Have I conceived all this people? Have I begotten them? In other words, are these my children? That thou shouldest say unto me, carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father beareth the sucking child, unto the land which thou swearest unto their fathers. Moses is saying they're acting like a bunch of babies. That's what he's saying. And you know what? They were. Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? I don't have flesh. I don't have any, food. For they weep unto me, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. I am not able to bear this burden, or to bear all this people alone, because it's too heavy for me. Well, you're right there. You're not able to bear it alone. And if thou thus deal with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand. If I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness. What just happened? Moses is a good guy, right? Moses is positive. Moses is the one that goes and says, oh, Lord, please forgive these people. They don't know what they're doing. Moses is the one that's interceding. Moses is the one that's strong. And look what happened.
Saying, I give up.
He said, you know what? That complaining wore him down. Our complaining, our constant complaining, can even affect those people. We say, we said it was contagious, and we think, well, other people. I'm talking the faithful people that we think are just solid as a rock, like Moses. It can bring them down. And it did. Look, Moses' attitude right here is not any better than the people's. The only positive that I can say about his is he's actually complaining to the Lord and not just complaining about the Lord.
Yeah.
That's the only positive I see here. He is pouring out his heart to the Lord, But look at the attitude.
Yeah.
How come you're making me do this? How come you're afflicting me? How come you haven't found, you said I found favor, but now I don't see where I found favor. Well, that's calling God a liar, is it not? You said this, but I don't see it. Well, Moses got to the point with all that complaining, it was contagious. And finally it got to where it wore down even his faith. It wore down even his strength, even his, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to complain. It just, you can make the most positive person in the world. I'll tell you this story and then we got to go. I don't know what it is about certain grocery stores. Certain grocery stores to me have very, very pleasant people working at them. And certain grocery stores have the most unpleasant people working at them.
Comes from the top.
So I was at one of these stores that has usually the most unpleasant people, and they had a new guy. He was I think he was Korean guy, and he was just the sweetest thing. And he talked to me, and I talked to him, and we talked about Jesus, and he asked some questions. And two or three times I'd gone back in there and saw him, and we chatted and whatever. After a few months, I went back in and I saw him. And I talked to him, and he was like a totally different person.
They wore him down.
He was kind of moody. He was quiet. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's just having a bad day. So when I went in there again, a week or so, week 2 later, I got his line because I was like, exact same thing. And I thought, And as I was standing in his line, I was listening to the cashier and bagger behind me complaining about somebody. And she said this, and I can't believe she said that. And I looked at the guy in front of me, and I thought, now I understand.
It's contagious.
It's contagious. And he was so upbeat and so happy and just he was so glad to have that job. And he was like a different person being around all of that all day long, every day.
Yeah, I felt that too.
Even Moses was not immune to the complaining. We're going to pick up there, Lord willing, next week. But I have to let you go because the choir has to go. And I have to go because I'm in the choir. But my challenge to you, and you don't have to take the 30-day fast if you don't want to, but I encourage you to try to pay attention to what's coming out of your mouth. Is it creating life or death? Is it pulling people down or lifting people up? This has been very much on my mind lately. So I hope that you'll just take these things and meditate on them this week and, for lack of a better phrase, watch mouth. Watch mouth.
And the thought process of it.
Yes. We'll pray and we'll be dismissed. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for these tough lessons, Lord. They're hard to hear because we know, Lord, we're guilty and it's convicting. But, Lord, we know we need to hear these things because otherwise we're doing these things and not realizing we're doing them, and we're displeasing you day after day, Lord, and we're hurting our testimony and we're hurting other people just for the things that are coming out of our mouths. So, Lord, please give us strength. Help us to be focused on what we're saying, Lord, and to be mindful of those things and to make sure that the only thing that comes out of our mouth is praise and thanksgiving, Lord. Pray that you'll bless our services and all that we do today, Lord, that will honor and glorify you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.